Hi there. Our meditation for this is going to be very simple. To take some slow, steady breaths in and out, releasing stress as we exhale. Now we're going to regulate our breathing by counting to 4 on the in-breath, pausing for 4 before we exhale, counting to 4 as we exhale, pausing for 4 before we inhale. This is called squared breathing. I'm going to do it with you. Inhale for 4. Okay. After doing a few rounds, return to breathing normally. The next thing we want to do, take our left hand and move it over to our right knee and then return it. Take our right hand, move it over to the left knee and return it. And now we're going to count to 20 as we do this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Take a nice deep breath. Exhale completely. And resume normal breathing. We have now synced both sides of our body, both hemispheres of our brain. And as we go into the reading, we set the intention for this or something better, meaning we will not be limited by what we encounter in the reading, that we will only use it for our highest good and the highest good of all. And if there is something better, we wish to line up with that. Okay? And let us begin. Hey there. You chose reflection number 1. Let's see what we have here. I'm going to read the cards as I lay them out, but be careful not to take any of these too literally. I'm going to get a cohesive message after I've laid everything out and sort of start getting the feeling of the energy as I lay them out. So, faithful, companion, Palo Santo, human family. So going to a little light here. Solid foundation, success with effort. It's the Tower card on the tea leaf cards. Yoke, feeling tied down or frustrated. Ladder, climbing towards success. Sunrise, new creative ideas, new ventures, a fresh start. So that's going with Tower. And essentially we got climbing towards success. With the ladder, I'm putting that with the Tower as well. Got October. Could be a birth month or a significant month, or I honestly don't hold too much weight with timing. So, if it's a synchronous thing for you, then take it that way. It's out of your control. Your heart is open. You are trusting your intuition. One way that I could use a month is to signify the beginning of a cycle. So, if that fits for you, then you can take it that way. Okay, so root causes here: perfectionism, offensive, deceptive, polarized, black and white thinking, longing. It's interesting. For the astrology oracle, we got Eros, Gemini, asteroid, and when that comes out, it tells me that this reading includes a specific other person. Third harmonic, cardinal trine. Okay, so if this doesn't describe you, then maybe it's the other person. Soft, gentle leader, masculine, advisor, helper. Friends, circle of innocence and trust. Gentleman, courteous, kind, greetings. Okay. So it's like a divine masculine energy. Patience, relationships, flower power. Easy does it. Which goes along with patience, right? Be yourself. Express your feelings. And then we just need to look at the tarot cards to see what's been going on. King of Pentacles, Three of Wands, Eight of Swords in reverse, Ace of Swords in reverse. You're trying to come to realize some truth. What's this? The Empress? Yeah. Was the Empress in reverse, or did I just turn it in reverse? I think it was upright. Okay. There's some sort of like inner dialogue that be keeping you from truth. It's like putting someone up on a pedestal. Okay. So that there's some truth that's being held back. Okay, so these are two divine beings. Okay? And when I say divine being, I'm talking about two people who know themselves to be on a path of knowing themselves, of expanding consciousness, of a willingness and wanting to live their own ideals and to learn and grow through that. Divine in that they, in some way, in some form, have acknowledged the divine orchestration of things, like God, creator, source. Maybe even consider themselves a conduit to bring forth higher aspects of themselves. Okay, so, but we have someone here who's really more in the earth realm, so maybe less spiritually focused, or maybe less spiritually focused than the other party, but not less spiritual by any means. Just focused maybe on the physical, right? And these two are friends, at least on a very soul level, like at least on an energetic, spiritual kind of soul family level. These two also happen to be studying relationships here on Earth. So maybe the relationship with each other has been used to study, and also the relationships that they have around them and with their human family. Through the process, I kind of want to put them on an equal level, like equally yoked, right? It's funny because this yoke card says feeling tied down and frustrated. But when I saw the yoke, I was like, I heard equally yoked, right? And it's like these two are equals. But one of them may feel frustrated, or they both may have at times felt frustrated and tied down by having this connection and this soul calling. Because it is a higher calling. It's a path that you can't stray from without really noticing the consequences. And I want to say suffering the consequences, because it's just like this high calling that souls intended. And then if you in your humanness go off that path, there are great measures taken to put you back on the path. And what that looks like on a very 3D earth level is that things that you try to build that aren't for the thing that you're intending to do as a soul will crumble and will continue to crumble. And if you have something that you're trying to accomplish out of your egos, want to accomplish it, and it's not in line with your soul's desire, and it will interfere with your soul's desire, it won't come about. And it will seem like you're being tripped up and stuff like that. But I don't think this is a path, a lifetime, or a journey that means you can never have those things. I just think it's a divine orchestration. So there's a certain order that things need to happen in order for them to be built on the most solid foundation. Now, relationships as a focus for this lifetime, it's like the material success is achievable and probably very likely has been achieved in other lifetimes by both parties. And with the relationship focus in this lifetime, maybe some of those material successes have been held back so that the focus has to be on the relationships. And perhaps there's a lot of like obligation feelings and challenges and things that just feel really tangled and karmic and ancestral and like burdensome in the relationships around these people. And perhaps they themselves don't feel like they with a lot of these relationships around them. So these people are in a classroom of learning about relationships of all kinds, as well as with each other. Okay. Now, we talked about why some things have crumbled and some endings are happening. And that is so that the focus can be on what the soul's intention is. There is a friendship, a faithful companionship between these two. And I think they can intuit each other. There may be a telepathic bond. And they don't get to control each other. They just have to take the data that they learn from interacting with each other. And that data is mostly, at first, going to be about themselves, right? Because they get to be mirrored back their own insecurities and doubts and fears through relating with each other. And one of them might have been like putting each other on a pedestal and then realizing your own insecurities. And just like being put through the paces in a process of clearing up inner insecurities, fears, doubts, anything that puts your own foundation at a disadvantage for building and creating what you want, and being the solid foundation that can hold it. Okay, and building solid relationships is part of the success being sought by these souls. So it's not just material success, it's not just a fortune, a wealth, whatever. It's also having fulfilling relationships. So it's likely that these two people came into human family homes where there was not that. And they are clearing up the patterns that they have been subject to by being in those households and having that family experience. And they're cleaning up that karmic backlog, so to speak, of the ancestry of those families in order to gain their own freedom, because you only go as high as you've been low. So two spiritually advanced souls that want to study relationships and have had many incarnations would want to incarnate into difficult dynamics in order to really experience the richness, maybe even the extremes. Because I feel like these souls are souls that have been doing this a while, in several incarnations, okay? Now, that said, some of the things that are still maybe at play in needing to be cleaned up for one or both souls so that this truth can come out. And also there's an inner story that's unhealthy. Like the insecurity that's keeping the truth from coming out is an inner dialogue, perhaps in the masculine. It seems like the feminine might be just like further ahead on the journey, perhaps, and maybe just like, you know, patiently doing her life and expressing herself and being herself and like trusting her intuition, right? And getting in touch with her passion and things like that. And it doesn't mean that she doesn't have a touch of this too. So I think both parties should pay attention to what these root causes are that we're going to talk about in a minute. But look at the spread of what's been going on. The King of Pentacles focused more in the 3D realm, in the earth realm, may be held back from moving forward by like the storyline that they live within their own selves. You know, to be honest, if this divine feminine is also living a storyline that is unhelpful to her, then the way it looks is that she's in an extended hermit mode without the inspiration to move forward. Okay, yeah, I'm going to put them back on equal standing here and say both need to work on this inner storyline. And the inner storyline is hard to identify when you're in it. And there may only be moments where you get a glimpse of it and you see it and you're like, oh, well, no wonder my reality looks like this because I've been thinking like this, you know? And when you've grown up in a certain family and people have always been how they are, and you've worked on the relationships with them and you've done what you can to get out of dysfunctional relating and all that kind of stuff, but the other parties are still who they are. They still function in the way they always did. You can start to see the difference between how you have grown and learned and healed and how they're still acting. So that's one place you can start to see it, you know? And then what's being pointed out here in this reading is that there's an opportunity to collapse that altogether and to change timelines, right? But by changing the story that you tell yourself about life, about how life is, and about how the people in your life are. And here's how you do it: you create another version of yourself in your mind, right? In your imagination, right? That's where you're going to create it. And then you line yourself up to it, because what you create in your imagination is going to be from your heart, right? You're inspired to it. You know, this isn't a place for your ego to come play and decide, you know, you feel in your body if it's true for you or not. If you're imagining something and you just like, not true for me. Not true. That's a stretch. It's like, that's not going to happen. But you can bring yourself to the truth of what you want to aspire to. And yes, it's okay to dream big if it feels true to you. Like you can feel it in your body. You know if it's true. Or you know if it's just a lie you're telling yourself. You know it if you really listen. And these two people know when they're lying to themselves, when they really listen. Okay? And so you become this new version of yourself that does not have that old story. It's a new story. You bring yourself into vibrational resonance with the new version that you created. You know what you do want by knowing what you don't want. This new version that you create be the new timeline where you live. And I really think that this might have gotten tangled up in the idea that we don't control other people, and we don't. But we can control what we think of them, whether or not we expect of them. You know, it can be damaging to expect our loved ones in our family to keep showing up the way that they always did. And yes, we have a lot of experience and evidence to show us that they do keep showing up that way. But what if we removed ourselves enough to let the divine orchestration line us up with the version of them that doesn't show up that way? We become resonance with that life, that version of us that we've created, that version of us that doesn't hold them in the same space that they always were, right? We still don't control them, but we also don't hold us in that old story anymore. So you become the version of yourself that can be in resonance with the new life, right? Which is a true life, right? And it's true because you felt it within your body and you knew it was possible. This is a felt experience. You feel your way to this, okay? Both of these people have been put through the paces on getting in touch with knowing their own truth. Both of these people have been put through the paces of knowing what a lie feels like. This is a sort of moving thing, I think, that is going on here. Moving, like, for me emotionally, to, like, realize and because when I'm looking at it and feeling it, it's like these two are moving in tandem in a way. They are very useful to each other. And it's like if one person tried to come incarnate in this energy alone that these two hold, it wouldn't have worked so beautifully. There is something about this faithful companion, this great friends. There's something about these great friends that they enjoy working together, that this is fun for them. It's exciting, and it keeps things fresh and new, and they're both coming out of experiences in their life that were not like that, because both of them had a lot of trauma or dysfunctional relating in the dynamics that they were born into in the family, in their respective families. And it put them into black and white thinking on a lot of things. And it put them into like lack mindset and survival, really. So, but all along, now that they've moved into this space where their heart is open, at least one person's heart is open, the other one must not be far behind. Okay? With the heart open, like, things become a bit more clear, right? And so you see that pattern that you've been living in and how you've been expecting people to show up the way that they always have. And it's like, I've been creating this thing for me to live in. It's like so ingrained, and it was such in the background running all the time that I didn't realize I was caging myself in. And so you realize that all things are possible. It's possible that they show up that way, and it's possible that they don't. And if both things are possible, then we're in the neutral space on it. We're not going to experience the extremes. We can experience the limitless possibilities that exist. So, okay. The other things that can be holding these people into the space of the old way of being, right? Leftover things that might be holding them into the old way of being. Perfectionism. So you got to be willing to make mistakes. It's like not even about making mistakes at this stage. It's like about, you got to be willing to experiment. You got to be willing to go where others won't go, say what others won't say. It's like that fool energy. You're a pioneer. So pioneers don't know everything about the place that they're going. So it's not necessarily a mistake, right? It's not gonna be perfect. Perfect is the willingness to go. Perfect is being in the moment for an experience that you're having. It can only be perfect if that's where you're at. Okay, so ideas of needing to be perfect, of not, looking foolish, of not having the answer, of doing something that doesn't work out, like those things all need to be dealt with on a deep level and released. And any feelings that are lodged in us that are keeping us in those patterns need our presence so that we can become neutral on that. It's like, yeah, I'm perfectly in the moment at all times that I'm in the moment. It's like that. Okay? Deceptive. So anywhere where the truth has not been acknowledged or told, that needs to be dealt with. And there is something here. It's like coming towards the Empress. There's a Ace of Swords in reverse. And so the truth has not been told to the Empress. The Empress did not understand yet some vital truth to her going forward. I don't think she's too negatively affected at this point, I think she's got patience and she's just enjoying being. So I think that when anything like this where like it's deceptive to be in the story that you're telling yourself about life and about people and to not realize it, that's self-deception, So it could be some self-deception on both parties' parts and like what's acceptable for them, what their part is in it, Anywhere where we're justifying something, anywhere where we're blaming someone. These are clues as to where we're not being in truth. Of course, fear is like not the truth. Okay? Offensive. Offensive. Interesting. It's like something about a belief of what is offensive. And the only thing I can think, and must be this, it's like, it's about not feeling like your self-expression is offensive. Just because someone's offended doesn't mean you're offensive. Defense is the first act of war. Is that what this is? Let's clarify this for me, please. Offensive. Could be somewhere where the truth hasn't been told. It's like going to offend somebody. The truth is offensive. It could be that. It could be like, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Something like that, right? In those kind of cases, if that's the kind of tangle that's going on here, this mix up between your values on being honest or being offensive, not wanting to be offensive, but knowing that your honesty would be offensive, stuff like that, you really have to untangle that and look where that might have happened earlier on in your life and why it's a problem. When's the first time you experienced something like that in your environment? Acknowledge it, validate, why you might have picked that up, accept that you have picked that up, and be present with how you feel about having done that and doing that. Offensive. The other thing is, in the study of relationships, it's very interesting how we can take offense to other people's behavior. Other people's behavior is about them. And yes, there are some people who actually try to manipulate, coerce, lie, and harm other people, offend other people, hurt their feelings, right? But we're in control of how we feel. So, this belief in someone trying to offend us should alert us to the fact that we have put some sort of value on the data that's coming from outside of us over what we know are to be true about ourselves. And that is that we have the choice to feel how we want to feel, and that our value cannot change based on somebody else's appreciation or lack of appreciation of us. So, being offended could reveal to us a lack in our self-esteem. So anything like that, anywhere you can be offended, I want to say this goes for even very things that seem like very offensive. Yeah, I was just shown an example in my mind, and I don't know if I want to share it because it's a personal example, but I'm gonna share a similar example. So, say you hear a man say something, of a sexual nature that you find offensive, saying it towards you. It's like even that, which a lot of people would agree is inappropriate, even that you don't have to take offense to it. That's a them problem. Why are you making it a you problem? You know? It's like if I heal the part in me that wanted to take offense to that, then that is said and I don't flinch. All I do is take the data point and of information about what that person is revealing to me about themselves. And at the very least, revealing to me about the way that they want to behave. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how they are. Who knows what's happening? Could be a prank, could be a joke, could be something I misheard, could be they're in a bad mood, could be how they are. It doesn't really matter, you know? The moment I take offense, I'm making myself a victim to that, to words, you know? Of course, this is different for, physical assaults, and thankfully we're not talking about that in this reading. Okay, so then we have longing. Oh, here's a good one. So now remember, these are parts of the old story that need to go. And longing needs to go, and here's why. Because these two are already joined in soul. They are great friends. They are soulmates. They are on a journey of relating, maybe very much in an etheric realm, and maybe only sometimes in a physical realm. And in the etheric realm, they are always connected, even if they are not connected in the physical realm. It reminds me of what I say to my granddaughter sometimes when she tells me that she misses her mom. Now, she is very young, and her mom passed away when she was a baby. And she's 4 years old, and sometimes she'll just say, I miss my mom. And I think energetically her mom is with her, and I condone that, I want that for her. I think it's lovely that she has an angel, in her mom that can see her from the etheric realm, if that's the case, if that's where she's watching. But what I tell her is that her mom is in her heart, and that she can go into her own heart and find her mom there whenever she wants. And so your heart, your open heart, is your gateway to the other. This telepathy that might be going on can happen on a mental level, right? And I can't really claim to know enough about how that works to be honest. I think I've read about it, and I read that you have to be in a receptive mode. Know that I've read lines of energy, and I don't feel like I was necessarily in a receptive mode when I did that. So I'm not sure based on my experience and what research I've read, they don't really go together at this point. So I'm still figuring that out. But your connection is definitely there through your heart. Because if it's telepathy connection, it's like when one person thinks about something else, that could be severed, right? But really, what it is, telepathy, as far as I know, is that you are vibrating in the resonance of the other, so that you can line up with and interpret their energy, you know? And these two always resonate with each other on some level. And that means when they both create this new version of themselves and then resonate with that new version of themselves, they will both be still resonating with each other. The new version of themselves also resonates with each other. So this longing is an illusion. So you can integrate that, any longing, in with the understanding that this person, it's a resonance where you reach them. If you're not seeing them in the 3D realm and it feels like a longing, like a missing, like a, being without, it's like, oh, well, actually, you are always connected. That's just part of that old story. The fact that you'd have to long for them is part of that story. Where else did you long for something in your childhood? This relationship has shown you a mirror of what's inside you. So this relationship could have shown you places where you took offense, places where you wanted to be perfect, places where you were black and white thinking, where you were polarized, meaning thinking the opposite of them, where you were longing, and where you were deceptive. So those experiences that you had in those realms with this other person were literally there to help alert you to this old story that you've still been living and that you are now getting ready to step off of. So take the time in hermit mode to kind of untangle those things. Get the new vision for the new version of yourself. And then I want to say that it's not even about like jumping off into the leap. I think it's just be that. Just be that. And then you will see things looking differently. I just got a little bit of chills and stuff, so. I'll address this before we wrap this up, though, even though this has gone on a little bit long, because we still had this feeling tied down and frustrated. And I did mention one of the parties or both parties could feel like this. And that's because, as you were working on the mirror reflection of yourself and all the things you had to untangle that you were reflected back to you, that could have felt, frustrating, and you could have felt tied down because you can't get away from this. This is what you were doing. You were always going to be brought back to it until you did it. So that could have been feeling like you were like tied down. But this companionship, this relationship between these two people, which, maybe it's been passionate lovers in other lifetimes, and there is eros here, so anything is possible here, but this relationship between these people is not about being tied down or frustrated. Like the new version, these people are free. Because freedom is truth. Okay? We did get Palo Santo here, so I actually did Palo Santo right before I started this reading. You might want to get some Palo Santo or use your Palo Santo if you have it. Having faith in yourself and in the process that you're in, knowing you're not crazy, you know, really trusting this process that you're in will help you navigate it without the frustration. You know, it's a beautiful process that you're in. And I think it's really important to you and your soul. That is what the message is for you. You're moving along very well, right? You're trusting your intuition, your heart is open. Those are major things that are helping you with this. Take your time, be patient with yourself and others, right? You don't control the others, you control yourself. You got this. And that completes your reading. Hello. Reflection number 2. Just remembered I heard my phone about to die and I have the flashlight on to use, but I think it's fine for now. I have dealt out a lot of cards. I'm going to read them as I flip them over. Remember not to take anything too literal when I do this part. We'll get a cohesive message after. As I lay out the cards and hear the words, I start to get a picture of the energy. So that's how I'm doing these. Program, spooky, life of the party, adventure, justification, used. What's been going on? Queen of Cups, death, 9 swords, Sun card in reverse, 5 wands in reverse, Purse in reverse. Just look at this for a few moments. I mean, I kind of felt like it was like requited love, but I think there's more to it. Let me just flip some more cards and see what else. Thoughts create your reality. Ask for what you want. Affirmations. Your desire is within reach. Forgiveness. Discipline. Alchemize, healer, transmute, empath. Agreements, integrity, love, trust. Cutting, proud, bottle, thug, ego, owner, boss. And from the astrology oracle, we got Amor. Retrograde. Melancholia. Hygeia. Atlantis. Fire. 8. Okay. Financial gain, usually coming from something you did in the past. Doing that with discipline. Slowly but surely getting ahead. Doing that with desire, your desires within reach. We got September, and it could be the beginning of a cycle that you're currently in, or a significant month for you, or I don't really use these for timing, so these are timeless readings. You could listen to one of the readings and then come back a year later and choose something else, and it would still be relevant for you at the time you chose it. That's how these are set up to work. They're kind of magical like that. Grounded confidence. So you are feeling rather confident at this time. Are boxed in. So there's something you believe, or you've made it to where you wanted to go. But you're also in process. Interesting. We got reached destination and then in process. So you've accomplished something, and then but you're still working on other things. Got it? And then you're boxed in on something. So that means that something you believe is limiting you, or it could just mean you're in a safe container. See what these root cause cards reveal. Cruelty, insecurity, avoidant. Okay, so we got cutting and proud here on this card, and we got cruelty and insecurity and avoidant. And this is ego, right? So we got this card that indicates that there's I paused because I didn't know if I wanted to say this was you, a part of you, or if someone else that you're dealing with. I'm going to talk about it as if it's you, but you might be experiencing this outside of you. It doesn't mean the energy doesn't exist in you. So just keep that in mind as I talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it as if this is you. Okay. So we're dealing with a part of your ego that have not understood yet. You've not understood the way that it's functioning for you, and what it's creating for you on a bigger picture. Your thoughts create your reality. So if your means of accomplishing something has egoic, fear-based reasons built in, then that will be the reality you live, which means you will have, you will be boxed into the fear. But this situation is happening so that you can notice it and that you can alchemize it. So you do have the skills to come out of this. Okay? Forgiving yourself for cruelty, either for accepting cruelty against yourself or for exhibiting cruelty towards others. Both things have happened to you at different times, maybe at the same time. And forgiveness for self, that forgiveness means you understand that this happened, you understand why, and that you're willing to be with your feelings about it, which will transmute the feelings about it. Okay? It probably started with someone doing this to you, and then you have done it to others. I think you might deny, you might not realize you do it to others. I think you're busy trying to have fun. We got life of the party over here and justification. I think when you are to others, it's in a very, it's in a way that you can feel innocent about. It's in a way that you feel justified by and to. I think you use humor. Pick on people's intelligence. but it might not be that obvious. It might be like you exclude them. It might be you make fun of them in front of others. It might be that you do this, the spooky thing is like, oh, you ghost them. Yes, ghost them. Or dismiss their beliefs, dismiss them because of their beliefs, something like that. So we have avoidant here as well. And so avoidant is often something that we'll associate with attachment style. Attachment style is where we are developing our ability to attach to others based on how we were treated by our mother. Avoidant attachment can come from having your emotions dismissed, family home. So I think that your cruelty and might come from, it might manifest as dismissing other people's emotions and how they feel. And you may not realize that this was a cruel thing that was done to you. And also it has resulted in some severe insecurity in yourself. And I think that you mask that very well. I think that you project that onto others, and those are your targets, the people that you see that are insecure. You see insecurity in others, and you hide it in yourself. So what's being asked of you is to reprogram this for yourself, to really look at what your thoughts are, to know that it's not going to happen overnight, that at this stage, it's not going to happen overnight, that the changes you're going to be making are going to be slow and steady progress, that you can achieve what you want, that ask and you shall receive. Ask for what you want. It's like instead, okay, so you want to be thought of as important, or you want people to give you some attention or to laugh at your jokes, right? It's like, can you get that need met more directly than to throw somebody else under the bus? What about this ghosting thing? Where does that come into this? Well, maybe just that it's cruel to ghost somebody, because there's this experiment by Dr. Emoto where he expressed emotion to water and then froze it, like flash froze it or something, and put it under a microscope. And based on the emotion that was shared with the water, it had different patterns or no pattern at all. And it was really fascinating. I actually personally recreated this experiment in rice and water jars. So I had identical jars of rice and water, literally identical, and perfectly cleaned, and everything was carefully put into the jar. Same amount of rice, same amount of water, same amount of cleanliness, same bag of rice, same water sample. And basically we wrote the word love, and I'm saying we because I did this with my niece, several years ago now. We wrote the word love on one jar, and we wrote the word hate on the other jar. And then we put them on a shelf. And they weren't that far from each other on the shelf either. They weren't touching, but they were there both together. So one wasn't getting more sun or anything like that. They were just on the same shelf. And after a while, I don't know if it was, I really don't remember. It could have been months. But the hate jar had black in the rice, The other jar did not. So very interesting that our words can affect others, right? Because humans are made up of water too. Well, in the Emoto experiments, showed is the jar was completely ignored, meaning it didn't have love put towards it and it didn't have hate put towards it. It had nothing. It was ignored. That jar was the blackest of all. Because Dr. Emoto also did rice experiments. The blackest jar was the ignored jar. So to ghost someone is very energetically cruel. Hold on. So I'm getting your next level of success comes in when you clear up this kind of stuff. This avoidant, cruelty, insecurity kind of combo, which I can admit is a very tall order, you know? So that tells me that you're a very high level soul who came to overcome some really challenging, intricately woven patterns of, I want to say, dysfunction and suffering and discomfort. I don't think you've been necessarily suffering. I think you have very good coping mechanisms, but I think you're just not achieving what you want to. And maybe your impulses have started to get you in trouble a lot more. Like confused about that. Like, hey, I used to get a lot more better results when I did this stuff. And now it's like, nah, your soul has kind of said, no. We got to address this. And especially the emotional realm. It's like some light is being shined on your emotions here for some reason, because we got the sun in reverse and it's on the Queen of Cups. And where I laid the cards, it's like it's covering the Queen of Cups, and then we've got the Death card next to it. The Knight of Wands in reverse. Reverse in reverse. Swords. You feel burdened, maybe even by past experiences. Maybe you know that it wasn't right that you ghosted or you were cruel or made fun of someone or whatever. And maybe you feel some way about that, and it's asking you to forgive yourself. You go into these periods of time where you get melancholic. Hold on. So you've had a certain level of success, and it's saying to get some more. It's within reach. It's going to be a little slow and steady process because we've got to untangle these things. Because even if you were allowed to move forward and build what you wanted to build right now, it wouldn't be on the foundation of solid what you need it to be. Instead, it would be on the foundation of this stuff, and that stuff's going to crumble eventually. And it's like it's kind of doing that now. Whatever's not working for you, it's like that's why. This is what it's saying. And it's confusing, right? It's like, why all of a sudden is this not working for me? Well, you may not be a person who has really fully integrated the idea that you are on a soul's journey and that you came here with an agenda for your soul. And that it's not just your ego that's here to create and succeed in the way your ego wants, that your soul actually has something to do here. So it's asking you to sort of reprogram your ego to get it on board with the idea that there's something bigger here for you to do, that there's actually some like inner growth and inner transformation, and that everything you've learned up till now is going to help you on this part of your journey. That's why, it was orchestrated the way it was. because the level of success you've had has allowed you to be very confident. And you're going to need that confidence for this part of your journey. You're going to need to be able to be disciplined for this part of your journey. Knowing that you can do and achieve something, you're going to need that for this part of your journey. So don't get it wrong when you've failed a few times when you used the old method recently. It's not because you lost your touch or anything like that. It just means you got to do this first. And you probably had some clues about this recently in your surroundings and your reality. Maybe you've seen a lot of people being cruel. Maybe you've felt it within yourself. Maybe you've been reliving moments that you did it, or moments that you avoided and moments that you were insecure. It's just so that you can actually deal with this part of yourself at this time. So, how to deal with this part of yourself at this time? Well, use your confidence and your discipline, right? Decide. Acknowledge what the first thing is that you're going to address. It's the thing that's right in front of you, the thing that keeps getting your attention, that you keep trying to push away or avoid, maybe. It's in your subconscious and it's coming into your consciousness, right? So you're acknowledging it, you're validating, like why you've had this experience, why it was, how you handled the experience that you had. Accept that this is where you're at, that you're needing to deal with this now. And then be present with any feelings that you have about it. So avoidant, like we said, usually doesn't, avoidant can often be in a position where they've cut off leading with their feelings. So this might be challenging for you. And it's saying, like, take your time, It's just like, do it every day. Designate in a disciplined way. Designate time to sit with it. Eventually, you will become the version of yourself that can process that feeling. I mean, it may take days, it may take months of every day devoting 15, 20 minutes, half an hour to sitting with that feeling and letting it know that you're now going to be there for it, that you're now going to honor the feelings that you have. Eventually, your inner self will realize, I think they're really going to show up for me now. I mean, it's been a week and they've been showing up every day telling me it's okay. I don't know, maybe it's okay, It's like that. It's like showing up for yourself consistently. It's like all those skills that you built in making your successes up till now are now going to be used for your inner work. How beautiful. Because once you do one, there's going to be another to address and another. And these three are prominent right now. The cruelty, insecurity, and avoidant. And doing is actually healing the part of you that was subject to these things, that adopted these things as the story and as the way to operate because of these things. Okay? So just start with that one, the one, start with the one. Get help and guidance as you need it, or use more of these readings. But the answer is to just love yourself. You're going to be revisiting things from the past. And the nice thing about that is that means you can heal based on what you've already experienced, and you don't have to experience it again. Using your memories to heal is a beautiful, beautiful way to do it. So if you have something in the past and it keeps coming up and haunting you, it's there for you. It's showing you something. So take it as the gift that it is. And it's going to keep on giving until you get the gift. So don't worry. It'll be all right. This completes your reading. You chose reflection number 3. Let's see what's been going on. Swords, 2 of Pentacles, of Cups, Priestess in reverse, 2 of Pentacles again. Wow. Justice. Being used as the light, and it's about to die, so please excuse me for a moment while I plug it in. Just got that Moana song in my head. How far I'll go. Like, at the place where the sky meets the sea, it calls me. Go. Okay. Look up those lyrics. Probably have to edit this out, but see the line where the sky meets the sea, it calls me. Oh, if the wind in my sail on the sea stays behind me. Okay. So, you're being called to something. Have you answered the call? Sorry about my voice cracking, but been going through a pretty serious detox. So, that might be relevant for you as well. Whatever you're dealing with, you're handling it though. Okay? Some sort of, let's see. Might be keeping some sort of truth to yourself. This is beautiful. Okay. So, I feel like, you know the truth. You're handling things. You might be keeping it to yourself, but you're going out there, you're moving forward. Let's see what the other cards say. Now, you don't have to take the rest of the cards so literally. I'm going to read the words and kind of just get the energy as I read them. Release relationships that are no longer serving you is what I like to say instead of saying release toxic relationships. But just because I don't want to label things toxic necessarily. Everything's a learning experience. So you may have had to release certain relationships, or you may be in the process of doing so. Inspire others. Feel joy in all you do. I just heard, after all, it is your birthright. Patience, please. Your wish is granted. Courage. Success. Heavy quarrels, decided, disagree, burden. That's how you'll know who to release. Support, safe, stable. Investigator, claircognizance. Yeah, that's you, because undercover for a good cause. Yeah, you're definitely keeping some truth to yourself. The astrology oracle. Oracle. You got Icarus. Got patience again. Water. So emotions. Brazine. Like some sort of celebration. And fifth harmonic, gifts and creativity. Where are you at right now? A need to spend more time in nature. You probably already know that. Being asked to use your passionate energy, your sexual energy. Being asked to align with your highest self. And to alleviate your boredom. Elephant. A long journey, either physical or mental, will leave you wiser at the end. Teardrops, great personal sorrow. Caterpillar. Things will not always be this way. A change is coming. Personal strength and peace that assures success. Valley. Someone is trying to come between you and a friend or something you want. November could be a significant month. I don't use it for timing. Could have been the beginning of a cycle, someone's birth month. We got February. Casket. Someone going out of your life or the end of a situation. Okay, so a lot indicating here that you have had to part ways and that it was very difficult. A lot of grief and sorrow about it, right? Especially if someone wronged you. I just kind of want to sort these so that we can keep it straight here. Deep personal strength and peace. Things will not always be this way. Edge. Journey. Okay. So you're on a journey and they're asking you to be patient with this. You are going forward with knowing some truth and you are supported. I think it's with divine guidance. You may feel that. Okay. Icarus here in the astrology oracle. And the mythology about Icarus is that he was like this inventor, or he flew too close to the sun. He just wanted to go bigger and greater. And he flew too close to the sun and it burned him or set something on fire. I'm not exactly sure. Something like that, though. And the moral of the story was basically like wanting more actually backfired on him. Pushing something out of the zone it should have been in backfired. Okay. So your highest self has a clear picture, right? It's kind of indicating here that there's more you could do to get in line with your higher self. whatever energy you were using in this relationships with people who were working against you or didn't have your best interest at heart, or the dynamics were unfair, that energy can now be put towards, going inward and aligning yourself with your highest self. Okay, that's one thing. And that starts to bring justice, right? It's like, even though you've been handling everything, it doesn't mean everything was like a pleasant thing to handle. Imagination, influence. Also got inspire others. You could be an influencer, or if you don't like to be called that, like you might have some sort of platform. Critical, anxiety, breakthrough, presence, and declutter. So I'm going to put declutter, excuse me, critical and anxiety over there with the relationship that you are parting ways from. It might be more than one, it might be a group setting, it might be just ways that you've been relating. Sometimes you can change the relating dynamic between you and others and they'll follow suit, and sometimes not. You know, Usually you have to take some space initially anyway, either way, to you got to get to know yourself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Why have I been doing this? What's important to me? Put it in a list of priorities and find out where this fits. And I don't know, I just felt drawn to mention that I have this. Oh, your wish is granted just fell on the floor. But I have this deck that I made. It's called my handmade fair relating deck. And I just feel like pulling it out. To see what was, at the root cause here of the relationship that you've been asked to release. Or where can you go from here within it, okay? This deck, it comes naturally once you've already been in line with, Christ consciousness. But when you're purifying still and you're reprogramming yourself in order to be free of all those limitations and fears and lack programming, this deck is designed to help guide you through that process. Fill up your own cup. Give yourself what you need or want, and give only from the overflow. So maybe there was some codependence. There was people pleasing. Allow the experience to impress upon you instead of impressing your will. It could just, instead of your will, it could have been rose-colored glasses as well. Just seeing what you want. Expecting someone to fill certain shoes. Picking up that wish card because we want our wish granted in our hand. Then the other card that fell on the floor is find out what the issue is so you know what needs to be solved. All right, so basically it's saying pull yourself away from the situation so you can look at it, right? With a discerning eye, Not all tangled up in what you needed and what they did and what they said and blah, 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 but step back and look at it and let the experience impress upon you instead of you impressing your will. Instead of you telling your story about it, actually look at it more. You see what you see, fill your own cup up. Give yourself what you need or want in that situation. If you didn't get a need met, what were you trying to get met? What need were you trying to get met? When you can recognize that, you might notice that you didn't get it met. So can you meet it yourself? You have your own needs met and you're filled up. That's when you give to the other. So you have to be in the equation when there's a giving. Find out what the issue is so you know what needs to be solved. So it didn't exactly narrow it down on whether or not this is someone that you can be in your life, in another capacity, when you have an agreement with them about how you'd like to both show up. But what it is saying is Something I forgot as soon as I put the card down. Hold on. What the issue is so you know what needs to be solved. Yeah, like, is it that they are fundamentally unable to show up in any fair way? Like, if that's the issue, if find out if, like, are they wanting to? Do they want to make an agreement with you about how you're both willing to show up? Do they want to relate in a fair way? You know, that lets you know if this is something that can be solved or not. And also, are they honest when they answer you, when you bring that to them, you know? Because their actions would have to line up with that, right? Now let's get back over to this stuff. I feel like it's been difficult for me to speak during this particular reading. That wasn't necessarily in the other ones, so, and I also had that voice crack when I was singing the song. And all right, I just found that interesting. So there was one set of cards here I haven't addressed yet, right? Yes, these ones. The root causes. I got undecided, codependent, and lack of self-trust. Okay. So it's saying this is what is within you that you can work on at this time in order to be free of these patterns that you've been dealing with now. Even though you've been dealing very well with them, it's like you don't have to continue being in these patterns, meaning, like, even if you release this relationship with this person, you might line up with another person that does that same type of relating if you haven't dealt with this within yourself. And one of the things it's saying is, like, you may have a hesitance to decide, like to do this discerning thing that you've been asked to do, or to even decide to walk away from someone. You know, there's a polite and kind way you can do it. Yes, it does take some knowing yourself and knowing where you stand and what your boundaries are. What I would say, what you don't agree to having in your life. How don't you agree to be treated? You know, can you decide on that? The Inspire Others card is taking on new meaning for me as we explore this a little more, because imagine if you go on relating in this way that makes you uncomfortable or doesn't meet your need or kind of drains you or just feels like you're, not being treated fairly or right? Or actually someone is trying to work against you and maybe is actually underhanded and gossiping behind your back, or, just not wishing the well for you, not supporting you in your times of need, or whatever it may be, right? No equal reciprocation, and you've noticed this. So what if you continue on in that, and then that those people that you're relating to in that way have no other example to make them understand why they shouldn't relate that way? They've got no reason to decide otherwise, because you have been enabling that to go on, because you didn't speak up for yourself and you didn't take it into your own hands. So it's kind of saying, like, this indecision thing could be tied to, something in childhood, but where it's showing up now might be in the fact that you might be enabling situations to go on, when in fact you have a role here to inspire others. When they see you making the choice, then all of a sudden they know there's another choice to be made. They can make a choice too. Now, they're not going to always make it in the direction that you'd prefer, and that's not up to you. You have to kind of cater. Oh, so weird, the word salad that's coming out of my mouth. And word salad might be a thing that was used against you a lot, because maybe it just seemed like they were caring because they would throw a lot of words and it never really amounted to anything. But you have to tend to yourself through the process of dealing with however it goes with, And maybe it's just a matter of deciding that it's time to part ways, that you've grown in different directions. But being undecided is probably tied to something where you were put in no-win situations as a child. So it was like you were forced to decide something and you wouldn't win either way. An example that I thought of, which I don't think is the best example, but it's the only one that's coming to my mind, is like a no-win situation for me when I was a child was like being told to come do the dishes and also being told that I didn't do them right every time I did them. So if I decided not to do them, I would have gotten in trouble for not doing them. But I had to do them, so I had to decide to do them, and I still got in trouble because I didn't do them right. So I was in a no-win situation. So deciding really can become an issue for you, and it goes into your subconscious, and maybe you leave yourself in a lot of gray areas. And it's kind of funny, the paradox that we all can be in, right? Because it's like, oh, I have black and white thinking, but I leave myself in the gray. I'm just giggling, not at you, but at human nature. We're just so cute. So, anyways, you might recognize some situation from childhood where you got in trouble when you had to decide, or where you decided it would be better off to not decide. Maybe you had to be choosing between living with your mother or your father when they got a divorce or something like that, and it was a no-win situation, you know? But like what it's saying is this is still rooted as an issue within you, and you may have seen it in this kind of relating dynamic where excuse me, you felt like you were in a no-win situation, so you just didn't decide to make a change. And it was also tangled up in this codependent energy, you know? It's like codependence is where you're getting some of your needs met in an unhealthy way, looking outside of you. It's like looking outside of you to get your needs met without ever having looked within to see if you could meet them yourself. And we can do this to an unhealthy degree where we kind of outsource all of our needs for recognition, reassurance, importance, warmth, kindness, you know? It's like we don't bother to do that for ourselves. We look outside of ourselves for other people to do those things for us. And this is just something where maybe it was expected of us. Maybe we had to be selfless and we had to be in a role in our childhood home. And so the role that we chose was perhaps like people pleasing or high achievement or, you know, whatever it may be. But this put us in a pattern of looking outside of ourselves for direction instead of inward, right? So if you're a people pleaser, sometimes it's like the only sense of attention or importance you get in the family is if you start putting yourself in a helpful role. It's like the only time you're going to get a little attention. So, you know, only time mother might praise you is if you actually did something to make her happy. Other than that, you don't get talked to, you know? And it's understandable that you could adapt in such a way to look outside of yourself because it's like how you were trained to do it. But there comes a point where you realize, oh, like this is an unhealthy pattern. It causes me to look outside myself and try to go to other people to get my reassurance about myself. Meanwhile, those other people don't even recognize my value, just like my mother didn't, you know? Because, you know, in these cases, just this example, like the mother is likely suffering her own version of this, and it's a passed down pattern through the ancestry, right? So mother is probably not conscious of it. If you're here and we're talking about it, you have become conscious of it because you can break it, okay? And this is an invitation to break that pattern. So if it was something like high achievement, and it's like, oh, if I achieve and if I get like recognized at school and get an award, that's the only time I get recognized at home. So now all I'm doing is trying to achieve and achieve and achieve to try to get that recognition outside of myself because that's what makes me feel whole. And you can recognize, oh, that actually, if I require other people to recognize my value and they don't, like what's going to happen if I break my leg and I can't run that race and get that reward? Now I'm going to feel like crap inside if I don't have some sense of self and my own value. So you start to see the importance in building your own value. And your value is intrinsic. It's you were born with it. It never could not be there. It's just up to you to recognize it and see what it is. And then, if you want to give that gift of your true self to the world will embrace it, and there will be recognition and there will be appreciation for who you really are. But oftentimes we get in these cycles of being in these patterns, and it's unfortunate, but the people who will be in these patterns with us are also dysfunctional and also suffering their own version of it. We line up with other people. That's why I don't want to call them toxic relationships. It's like, well, it's just a mirrored relationship, a relationship that matches the vibration you're at. So if you're calling it toxic, it means you're toxic, but you're not toxic. You're just someone who grew up in a certain relating dynamic that we are actually evolving out of as a humanity, right? Like we are doing better now. We are getting awake to these patterns and we are doing what we need to do to break free from them. And it starts with being sovereign and taking responsibility for ourselves and making the decisions based on knowing ourselves, knowing our strengths and weaknesses so we can keep those in mind as we're making these decisions, right? And when we get really good, we're also like consulting with our intuition and letting that weigh in. But this reading isn't necessarily focused in on that at the moment. It feels like you probably have that. Okay. Because we got the high priestess, it was in reverse, but I read that as like you're keeping it to yourself, the truth to yourself. But there could be parts of it that you're not seeing clearly yet, for some of you. And for others, it's just like, it's saying like, okay, yeah, that's great and stuff, but like, let's focus on getting some of this physical stuff cleaned up, some of the patterns in the physical and in your relating and, your everyday life. Okay. Breakthrough, influence, presence, and imagination. Okay. Let me think about this for a second. Well, influences with inspire others. So, imagination. Why is that relevant here? I think that fifth harmonic, gifts and creativity, I think that might tie into the imagination and the breakthrough. It's like some people have this like ego that kind of puffs them up and tries to make themselves come off as someone who's much more confident than they actually are. But your ego, I think, might have been more like the inferior ego, where you feel more like a victim on the inside, or you were victimized maybe a lot by life, and also like you wouldn't be someone who would just like puff up your chest and act better than you thought you really were. So why was I saying that here? There was a reason for it. Hold on. I lost it. I don't know what it was, but I feel like you wouldn't really be at risk of like losing your humility, you know? Long journey, physical or mental, personal strength and peace that assures success. We got two success cards here. We got courage. Well, that's really it. It's the courage to break through into something that you're inspired to, something that you love. Yeah. Something that you may not have allowed for yourself before either. We got lack of self trust as well in the root causes here with the codependent and the undecided. Lack of self trust. Of course, if you have a lack of self trust, that lends to not being able to make decisions, right? So it's the same sort of root cause. But I think that with these things cleared up, then you come into this space of, you know, humble enough, but also intuitively drawn towards a passion that you get great joy from, and also success. But it might be this is one of those things where it's like a leap of faith. Is it 11:11 right now as I'm recording this? 11:11 p.m. A leap of faith into this new kind of vision that comes to you. And I think it will inspire others, though it might not be the reason that you're doing it, because I think that it's something that you love to do. As we got this fifth house, gifts and creativity, there's just something about what you do and how you do it. It's inspirational to others. You know, we got this releasing toxic relationships, and like part of me wants to try to tie that into it and say, oh, whatever you learned here would be applicable to here, but I kind of think that it's not necessarily directly tied. You know, maybe it's just sort of this reassurance, because it might can sometimes be a long-term process where you have to shed some people and then you have to shed some more people. You know, if you're just growing and growing and growing, then you do grow apart from people. And it's kind of a regular thing. If you are growing apart from people and your story doesn't allow them to grow along with you, then you will have to, you know, part ways if it becomes dysfunctional, or, you know, if some unhealthy patterns arise in the others for you to deal with. But those unhealthy patterns all along have been teaching you about these things within you, like your lack of self-trust, right? And your codependency, because you wouldn't really be in those situations if you trust yourself to make the decision to part ways, or if you didn't need anything from the situation, you know? Maybe there's some I feel like I could hear someone saying, but it's this kind of people in my life, and it's like it's a justification, and I get it, you know, I totally do. And you're on your path, and you can take the path that you want and only take what resonates with you, right? So if there's some exception to a relationship that you're in, and it, you know, then maybe that's not what it's talking about. Maybe there's something else here for you to look at in your relating dynamics. Or maybe it's that you need to raise the standards on how you're willing to relate with somebody in your life, even if they are in a role that you feel like is an exception. Because you are here to inspire others. That is something that's going to be happening through your journey and your path. So if you enable others to continue in their patterns, then they're going to continue in their patterns. If you're the one in their view and you raise your standards, they have a chance to do it too. You know, it's like that important. So, but it's not codependence either, right? Like you're stepping out of that. It's just an inspiration. And that's the healthy way of seeing in others what we want for ourselves. And then we take up the responsibility within ourselves to give it to ourselves, right? So an unhealthy person could see what you're doing and then feel envious or angry or try to take you down. But a healthy person who's willing to grow and learn will be inspired to their own changes. And that's the difference, and that's how you can tell. So, as far as processing any of these things, it's like if you have a memory of childhood on when one of these things happened, or maybe this happened consistently where you're put in no-win situations, excuse me, or maybe you can, study codependency and understand it a little bit more. So you can identify the ways that you've been doing it and participating in it. If maybe you've been on that process for a while now and you understand it, right? But basically, if you do have some sort of like repeating pattern that you can identify, we can address that with the formula that I talk about on my channel and many other videos. But I feel like this is sort of like stuff that you probably are aware of. And it's just kind of this reminder of, oh, there's just another layer for you to look at right now. You know, you're you're still in process of aligning with your highest self, and that boredom kind of you might feel is the space you need. So it's like still, continue to be in presence and get in the moment and allow that passion to come through, and that is you aligning with your highest self. So I would say like you're someone who's already been aligned with your highest self, and like now you're aligning again, It's like sometimes you take a step up and then take a step back to do a little bit more work. And I would say that's what you're doing. So the courage you need to go forward and the understandings that you need to go forward, I think you have all that. How exciting. And that completes your reading.